Today's theme, learn techniques for producing creative ideas, with our speaker, Duangrit Bunnag.
Hi,
He
hello
is
everyone.
the founder and MD of Duangrit Bunnag Architect Limited, holds a graduate diploma in design from Architectural Association School of Architecture AA in London. He is also the brain of the award-winning resort Costa Lanta and the Naka Phuket. He is the driving force behind the new creative hub of Bangkok, Chareon Krong, with a gallery design community with a hip space hangout. His subsidiary company, Ministry of Space, designs furniture under the award-winning brand Anyroom. He also holds 3 gold medals from Articulation, Wallpaper Magazine Designer of the Year Award in 2014, Arcasia Building of the Year Award in 2015, International Architecture Award from the Chicago Athenaeum in 2016, and DOTY Asia Most Influential Designer of the Year in 2019. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our internationally acclaimed designer and architect, Duangrit Bunnag. How are you, Duangrit?
Hi, hello everyone. Hello.
We're so happy to have you here. I mean, you have so many awards, and you are driving the creative forces in Bangkok and obviously around the world. And as I mentioned, we will have our interaction with our members, but I know that you have something to tell us about all your journey and how have you driven this creativity throughout your experience as an entrepreneur. Please tell us.
Sure. I would like to start briefly on the idea of creativity, just to give everyone a full background of what is actually creativity as we described. Okay, principally, it's not just about the idea. It's not just about looking good or any such a kind like that, but it's the whole conversation about possibility. Which, if you allow, I would like to actually introduce my presentation briefly right now. So I will switch the screen to the presentation now.
Super, yeah.
So you see that? Do you see that?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, good. So everyone is actually talking about disruption, but for me, the whole thing is about distraction. And I think because we're trying to explain of what is happening right now in a term of distraction, because it's indeed a distraction. I think when we said about disruption, something stopped, and obviously nothing is actually being stopped. So we got a little bit of distraction along the way, and that is how we creating things on this time at the moment that we are living in right now. So everything everywhere is about distraction. So we create a lot of attention and things, and marketing, design, architecture, and with that distraction, it was demanded the what we need to get to that distraction is creativity. So let's have a look briefly on what is actually existing in the world right now. Okay. So what is actually our immediate context of the society we are living in? Okay, so let's have something global context to talk about. Let's talk about population growth for a minute. Okay, we might see that the population growth, we will think that it's actually keep growing and growing and growing, but indeed, it's not. Okay, the world population growth is actually indeed declining. Okay, so this is what actually happening. I think the population growth, actually the baby boomer time in 1966 and 1967 is about 2.1% growth, okay, acceleration growth. But right now we are actually on the declining slope. So, within a few years from now, the world population will actually, the growth will be 0.1%. What is means by this? What is actually this data is actually bringing us into? Well, of course, the world population is declining, and 82 years from now, the world population is likely to be equilibrium number of 11.2 billion, which means we are unlikely to have more people in the world, and the number of the people in the world is start to decline. Okay, so This actually gives us the idea of the new economic space that we are traveling into. For example, if we look one by one, because of the declining population, we have smaller growth in everything. We have smaller growth in the market capital. We have smaller growth in the demand area. So we are great. We are creating actually a greater wealth gap. So it means that the gap between the people who are poor and the people who are rich is going to be higher and higher, and the demand of everything will be so diverse. If you look at the shoes, the shirts, or the watch, or anything that around you, there will be a lot of design diversity. So that is actually a demand of the market by this kind of population. We are looking at the strong segmented market. So it means that each segment of the market will be diverse and then actually they define from one another by a very strong segmented barrier. And of course, people will start looking for the individual supplies. Because they can order things online, they can contact the supply chain and have direct demand. It means that the supplier will be more, and the market will be less. Okay, and people will start buying things directly, and that actually drives into the fact that we have a limited resource. Okay, higher demand, diversity of demand, and limited resource. So this actually brought us to the new kind of economy. So everything that we do for economy actually will require a lot of attention. With that attention that we will be request to actually achieve, is actually creativity was brought into view. So I would like to talk about creativity from that sense of economic. This means people need creativity to improve the economy. And for example, obviously the creativity produce diversity of the products, and it actually add more value from the limited resource. If you have a glass, for example, and you cannot sell the glass as a higher cost, a higher price, because the design was not valued. The idea, the creativity, we brought the design to the glass, and the glass will be more valuable, so you can sell it more expensive. And that will brought the balance of the wealth gap. It means there will be more people that get richer, and we are talking about people from the bottom. Okay, they have more chance. If they have creative idea, they can brought the product to a higher price, and that actually narrow down the gap of the wealth. And that will encourage a segmented market, of course. The market will be more walled in terms of classified of class and thing, and that is actually better for the economy. And we are creating by this creativity independent designer and supplier. And for so many cases in this region of the world, designer became supplier. Okay, because they design something, they produce something, and they are so independent. Okay, so things like this is actually being created because of creativity. So now we are creating the new type of economy which is based on distraction, and that is actually a true meaning of the attention economy. So now you see how creativity is so important in everyday life from now on, in how it's important to our economy. But the question is that how effectively we can come up with a new idea. One of the question may be, if we want to have a new idea right now, how we can creating that. Okay, even for the special group of people who actually look at the design or looking at creativity in terms of marketing and things, they cannot actually produce a new idea like that, like a snap. So we have to actually find a way to actually looking on how we can create a creativity as a sort of the design immediately. So now we are looking at something that we are going to look at something that very crucial to our understanding of creativity. So this is another conversation. Okay, this is about time, and when we related ourselves to the time, we normally actually create it as past, present, and future, and we always think that the relationship of time look like that: past creating present, and present creating future. So this is something that we might want to think about that again. I mean, if you want to walk into the dot on the right hand side of the screen, when we think about that, then we walk into creating led into our action because of how we create ourselves into the future. But of course, I mean, the past creating us too. It depends on how or where we came from, where which city we're living in, or what kind of family we're living with. Also, this past also creating us. So if we were to draw a new diagram of what exists as time, we might explain that we are actually living in the present, and the present was created by past and future at the same time. Why I brought this conversation on the screen, because this is very important, that you have to know that your present also being created by the future and not the past. If I were to compare to something more understandable, like climbing to the mountain, if we were to climb into the mountain, we have to look at the top of the mountain, and when we may find a route or the pathway to the top. Okay, but we never think about climbing the mountain by looking at the bottom of the mountain. We always look at the pinnacle. Okay, and sometimes we can find a difficult way to walk into the top of the mountain, but we can find an alternative way which is faster and make us fly into the top of the mountain. And that is a content or the benefit of creativity. Okay, we're gonna look about something important. Okay, I want you to imagine something. Okay, I want you to imagine that if everyone in this room, or if everyone in this conversation, in this broadcasting, became, each of them or each of you became a creative person. I mean, everyone in this room is actually become a creative person. How much different it will be for our economy. Think about your country, for example. Think about your city. If everyone in your city became a creative person, how much it will be making a lot of difference for our economy. If everyone in this room became, someone like Elon Musk, how much it will make to our economy in a different. Okay. Now, let's have a look at this. The question that is that possible to make everyone in this room a creative person in less than 60 minutes? Someone would think that in order to become a creative person, it would took like the whole life, or will take like years. We need practice and it's things, but actually it's not. If I were to be in your room with you, in a class or something, I can make you a creative person in less than 60 minutes, which is what I'm trying to do right now. Okay. The reason we can make everyone become a creative person in 60 minutes, because you don't feel like it will be possible. Of course, you don't feel like I can be, creative in 60, a creative person in 60 minutes, because not all of you feel like you are already a very creative person. And this is a key why you don't feel like it's possible. You don't believe that you are always already a creative person. And I'm not talking about just a generally creative person, but you are a very creative person right now already. Okay. But let's have a look at this diagram, for example. You always think, actually, you are whole and complete, like this ball, but you think that you are small, so you try to add something to your life, so you feel like you're getting larger. But in fact, what happened is that you are already great, but something happened in your life that make you feel small. What you have to do is just to get rid of that, just get rid of something that make you feel small, and then you will feel whole and complete, and you'll know that who you are really. Okay. So when we talk about creativity, we are not teaching people to be a creative person, but we actually try to remove something that obstruct of what they will believe they are a creative person, or block their creativity and get rid of it right away. Okay, you are the slave of what you know, of course. I mean, this is something that you have to know. You always stick with the past of what you can do, what you cannot do, what you have done, your success in the past, and you are so slaved by that. Okay, so you are the slave of the past of what you know, and you always think that what you know is a reason, as a truth. Everything that you know, that you believe, you saw it earlier, or you know it earlier, you always think it is the truth. So let's have a look at what is the truth. If you actually think about this cone, okay, and you make a cut into the cone like that you got a triangle there. If you cut like that, you got a circle there. If you cut in a diagonal way, you got that ellipse, and this one you got a hyperbolic paraboloid. So when we talk about the section of the cone, I ask you the question, the crucial question is that which one is the real section of the cone? The answer is yes, all of them are, the real section of the cone, and it depends on how you cut into that cone. So everything is real. So my conversation on this is that if you actually, I use this cone as an analogy of truth, okay? It depends on how you cut into that cone and reveal the truth. So there is no one truth. There is no one absolute truth, but the truth is much related to how you cut yourself, or you cut into that cone of reality, okay? So there is nothing very legitimate about truth, because truth is what we created, and actually we create a meaning into what exists. We create the meaning into everything that exists. We call the chair a chair. We call you. We call table. We call that cone a cone, because we created. We create a conversation. We create a meaning to everything that exists. And you have to remember, everything that you created as truth is happened because you created. And it's not real. It's not real. It's just something that you fabricated from your understanding, your past, your life, whatever. But there is no absolute truth. So this is very important. You have to understand that there is no such a thing as absolute truth. So imagine that you are a circle, okay? Now that you know time is not relevant with the past, but you as someone in the present was created by the future, and the meaning that you gave to everything is not actually real. It's just the meaning you created. Now you're ready to see some example right now that I'm going to create in front of you. Is that I ask you to imagine that you are the circle. I mean, you are a circle. So imagine that you are a circle, okay? You, the whole thing, the whole you as a circle. A circle which is of space, nothing inside. Nothing inside the circle at all, not even a reason, not even you, just the space. So you can see and you can feel right now that you are only a space. Maybe look like a circle, but inside there is nothing except the space. And you are that space that's ready for something to show up. And you can keep on imagine that not even the circle itself exists, just the space. It means everything that became you is nothing, just a space, empty. And everything and anything can show up in that space. So you become a space. Now, you are ready for everything to show up in the space. Everything and anything, including yourself, can happen in that space. You are present in the context that exists. So there is no you, there is nothing, the meaning, anything. You just emptiness in that space. And you present in the context that exists, everything that exists around you. And as it exists, really, you do not give meaning, and really, and not the meaning you give to it. I mean, all that exists. I mean, the content that exists, all it exists, and not the meaning you give to it. So you are not actually feel the context in the way of what the meaning you give to. You know, you're thinking about your for example, your mother, your father. It's not as a person that you give the meaning to them, but as they are really for you. Okay. So within that context, you are ready and ask yourself only one important question. So this is the first and only step to let you to the creativity. This is how creativity happens. Sometimes you feel like something happened in your mind and you got a new idea. When you are not thinking about the problem that you try to solve, it's because you are living in this stage at that moment. You became empty, you became nothing, and you're present to the context of what exists. And then something show up. We call it the possibility. So when you actually stuck with an idea or you stuck with the creativity, this is the only sentence that you need. What is possible within this context? Okay, you ask yourself this one question: what is possible within the context? So you are looking for the possibility within the context, and when yourself is nothing but a space, not you, not you as your meaning, or what you give the meaning to yourself as you. It's just emptiness. Okay, and then you see the possibility that can exist in that space within the context. So I create one diagram that may explain you clearly of what actually can be happening in your mind. So if we present to the context and more of the context and more of the context, so you're starting to see the shape, right? In the beginning, you don't see the shape, but now because you have more context to your space, you're starting to see, and it looks like it's gonna show up like a form of circle. Okay, so this is how creativity show up. When you became nothing and you embrace the context around you and starting to see more dot of the context around you, then you're starting to see the form. Maybe it's triangle, maybe it's square, but in this case, it's a circle. So the circle will show up, without you even think about it. So creativity never arrives at the moment of thinking, but actually will arrive in the moment of you not thinking about it. So this is quite paradoxical. Only when you are nothing as a clearing or space that you can then be and create everything. So it's quite contradictory because in order to achieve everything, you have to become nothing. And within that nothing or space, then you can be creating everything. And I said everything because this is the whole idea of creativity. And that is actually right now the end of my presentation. So I will stop sharing the screen and get back to my screen. Yes.
This is very, very insightful, Duangrit. Thank you very much. I see the attendees, they were sending some emojis of insightfulness, and they were surprised when you mentioned that the population was declining. A lot of the things that you already mentioned are part of the questions that our members as pre-submitted. But to start with, when we are creating, we face that part of what is it possible, feasible, and the execution of it. Do you have any tips or any techniques for us to create a balance between feasibility and the execution reality of being a creative person and creating products that are creative?
Very simple. We never think about how to design a product or how to create something as something from the source. But you actually look at everything like feasibility, beauty, aesthetically, everything became a context of the whole thing. Can you understand that? Okay. So when you create, you embrace everything as a context of everything, and you embrace it. I'm meaning that you are really embracing it. Then you will start to see the possibility come up. So if I might want to take you back to that dot around the circle, and you're starting to embrace one dot and one dot and one dot and one dot, right? And became a shape of the circle. That's the same thing. So
Okay.
you embrace the feasibility, you embrace the reality, you embrace economy as a part of the dot. And if you embrace everything, the possibility will eventually show up.
It's almost like looking at every perspective in different corners to have a better result. And talking about that, when you mentioned that in order to also be creative, you feel that looking at the problem per se might block that creativity. But people are always thinking, how do we identify those problems correctly? Is there a way to frame problem solving in order to give a product with added value to your audience?
Yeah, the thing is that I myself I never address creativity from the problem. Okay, I think people actually understand this wrongly. They think that design or creativity actually is a problem solving, which is not. I mean, I think the whole idea is not, well, we identify the problem, of course, but as a context of possibility. So if you think that the problem is a context, then you don't have to correct it. You don't have to solve the problem, because creativity is not about solving the problem, but always about creating the possibility. Okay. So if the problem of what you have, or whatever it is part of the context that create the creativity, you will understand that more problem is the better, right? So you have
Yeah.
more dots, and that actually will deliver possibility faster.
Okay. So it all starts almost with changing our mindset of the description that we have about creativity. As you were saying,
Yeah.
a lot of people might think, oh, being creative is to be a problem solver only.
No, that is completely wrong.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. I have another question from our audience, and they're asking, when an entrepreneur is dealing with the operations day to day, running around and trying to do everything, they might lose sight of the creative side of the business because they're so into the operational situations and the tasks. Is there anything that you can tell our audience for them to be able to break free of that cycle of only getting our focus into the operations and forgetting creativity?
Well, I can answer this question in two directions. Okay, one of them is actually they are in the wrong context. Okay, never put yourself in the context that you never be creating. Okay, that is something that very important. So if you're not feel like you can create something in that context, you are in the wrong context. Okay, because normally, if you were to expose to a lot of problem, a lot of context, a lot of assignment, a lot of obligation, always bring you more creativity. Okay, so if you're not actually doing that, you are in the wrong context. For example, if actually I use the analogy of game, okay, if you are playing game, you got to be sweating, right? You got to be exhausting. You got to be taking risks. You have to be exciting about the game. If that game is not excited, it's not excited for you anymore, then you are in the wrong game. So I think entrepreneurship or creative person who working in the creativity field of creativity, if they don't feel like they can create something in that situation, they are in the wrong business. They are in the wrong seat. So this is important that they have to actually altering the context of what they are living in. Okay, and they have to find the new context to add to the context that they have, or they have to change the context completely.
So if everything is properly set up and we're in the right context, there is no excuse to take our time and be creative and allow that creativity to come.
Indeed, and something that you have to be very careful. If you cannot think about something new, the context might not be wrong, but you don't have enough context. Okay, remember that dot that I show you. Okay, so if you
Right.
have only one or two dots, it doesn't create a shape, right? So if you have one, two, three, it might create a triangle, and you think that is the shape, and then the fourth dot coming up, and you think it might be a rectangular. Okay, But none of that is true. After you actually completing the dot, or you see more dot, you're starting to see the possibility of the circle. So this is very important, that you have to embrace as much as context as much as possible. Okay, to show you the real, authentically the possibility.
What happens when you get stuck? Because sometimes perhaps we're not able to see the whole context by ourselves. Is it good to work with teams, ask for feedback? Is there anything specific that has helped you when you are facing those
Of
moments?
course, of course. I mean, working with people, working with your team. I'm an architect. I always work with my team. I think that is the best way to embrace the new possibility as a context. Okay, so they have the idea, I have the idea, and part of my idea and their idea is a part of the context that create the whole
Yeah.
picture. So this is very important. And if you cannot come up with something interesting, talk to people. You can talk to even your client, talk to your economic advisor, you talk to your team that you're working with. So when you actually talking to more people, you are embracing a larger dot of this context. So it helps creating your possibility. If you actually get stuck, you are obligated to expose yourself to more context or embrace more context in order to come up with that possibility.
That's super, because it actually connects to one of the questions that we have here from our audience. And I'm going to read
Sure.
it from the chat box. And excuse me if I'm going to pronounce properly your name. I'm going to try. Siazwani Izzati. She's asking, how do you get the creative ideas going? And this is part of what you just mentioned. For example, we got an idea, but the next step is where to take that to the next level. So I guess her question is, you have the idea, but how to take it to the next level?
Okay, that's a different conversation. Okay, so you got the idea. That's great. I mean, that's half of the job done. You have to understand that. Most people, they spend their whole life to get just one idea. Okay, so at least you got the idea. That's great. Now you have to actually going step by step to execute that idea, or we call in our terms articulated that idea. I mean, if you're a designer, you got the idea, you articulate it by a sketch, for example, you draw something. Or if you are a sculptor, you build a model, you build the sculpture itself. Or if you're the artist, you paint. Okay, so the articulations of the idea is very important. If you are marketing people, you have to write it down, you have to make a presentation. I mean, you have to find the tools of how you will articulate your idea. We call that instrumental. You need to find your instrumental to articulate the idea. It will be clear to you if you are a musician, okay, and you want to write a song. Maybe you have to find a piano or a guitar or whatever, just to articulate that note. So find the articulation, the way to articulate it, to articulating your idea. Find that tool, find that instrument, okay, and make it happen. In architecture, we only have 3 instrumental techniques. We have drawing, we have model making, and we have computer rendering. So we have only 3 instruments. And for you, I don't know what profession you are in, but if you need to deliver something intangible, you need to find a way to instrument your idea and articulate that out. Yeah.
Thank you. We have one more question from Dr. Shirley Young. She's asking, how do you mind agent transform? How do mind age transform? So yeah, how to mind age transform and overcome self-posed constraints for second life under COVID-19?
Well, I did exactly the same thing that I have been explaining for at least the last 40 minutes. I embraced COVID-19 as a context. Okay, but one of the things is that I'm not living in the past. Okay, so I'm living and articulate myself in the present into the possibility in the future. So what we normally do is that we ask ourselves what is possible within the context. We ask ourselves what is possible of the context of this COVID-19. What is possible for me? Okay, and I articulate myself into that future. of what is possible for me within that context of COVID-19. So we are not actually confronting, we are not fear, we are not fighting with it, but we embrace the COVID-19 as a part of the context of possibility. We are talking about new possibility. We're talking about the new future. We're not talking about the past anymore. Well, yes, I think the whole thing is not going to be the same, and we have to embrace that possibility of the world will not be the same. And we have to ask ourselves what is possible for us in the new world. Okay, so this is something definitely out of the creativity domain. And if you actually understand what I'm trying to explain, you will live your life beautifully. Into whatever happened, because your whole life is a whole thing about possibility.
So it doesn't have to, it doesn't mind if you are younger or older at certain age, it's all the same.
It's all the same. I mean, the mind work all the same, and depend on. It doesn't depend on your age. Okay, I'm 55 years old right now, and I still feel like I'm 19. Okay, because I have experience of the brain that actually telling me that I'm 55, but the way I work, the way I think is always the same thing that I'm younger. Okay, so the mind works all the same. So, and possibility being created all the same. If you ask yourself when you are 7 years old, what you want to be in the future, you might want to say, I want to be a astronaut, for example. And might seem to be a crazy idea. But that shows you how much is your potential, your possibility when you were younger. Okay. On the contrary, when you're getting older, you have more problems, okay? And you start building something called identity. If you remember in my presentation, we're talking about yourself as the space, the empty space. For the elder people, it's more difficult to create yourself as an empty space, okay? You will fill yourself with who you are, what you will be, what I become, or what I must be. And that is identity, okay? And identity actually obstruct you from the possibility. So actually the elder people are unlikely to create creativity because of this identity. So you have to train yourself to drop that identity, put it aside to be the empty space, and that will help you create a creativity much easier and faster.
Yeah, move aside all the social conventions that we get when we are older. We have Rachel directly from Canada. She raised her hand and she wants to ask you a question directly, Duangrit. Rachel,
Sure.
please come here on the stage.
Flying in.
Perfect. Hi. Thank you so much for the presentations. Naka from Canada. I just wanted to ask you, on your Instagram bio, you say that you are a politically incorrect architect. And I was just wondering, how does this concept come through in your creativity?
Well, I think the whole me sitting in this country, in Thailand, in Bangkok, and a lot of things has been built around political. And everyone in Thailand, at least by culture, they want to be politically correct. They want to be good person. They want to be nice. They want to be correct. And I think that is something I want to provoke the idea that, a person like me, I don't have to be politically correct. I just be free. I free my mind and say something I want to say. I'm not very well framed by the possibility of somebody else. Okay. I always actually talking about that a lot, that, I am nothing, and I can be everything. So it doesn't have to be me who is politically correct or being righteous about everything. I can be wrong. And that is actually being wrong is politically incorrect in Thailand. Okay, everyone wants to be a right person, to be righteous about everything. So I think for me, there is a reason for me to describe myself that way within the context of Thailand and Thai people, because I would like to tell them that, well, you don't have to be politically correct. I am politically incorrect. So you can be politically correct. So you can be free. You can say something that you want to say. And I have been doing that all my life.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's such great insight.
Sure. All right.
And I am back.
Sure.
More questions are coming, Duangrit. It's very, very interesting. Anna Wong, she wants to know if you have ever felt that you're not inspired or feeling creative. And if that happened to you, how do you get it back? How do you get your creativity back?
Well, I walk out from this room and get outside and meet with people. That's a moment. I'm not being very creative all the time. Especially when I'm being with myself and not being with people. If actually I'm inside my head, and start to solve the problem that I had inside my head all the time, and not meeting with people, not talking with people, not express myself to people, well, I'm stuck too. And that is something that I will give you the advice that if you actually being with yourself for too long, maybe you have to start talking with people. You can start talking like this, online or things. Recently, I just adopted this Clubhouse thing, the application. And we have been exposing myself to the community, and we start talking, set up the topic. And actually that drives a lot of creativity. We start giving ourselves, actually myself, to be more dynamic in conversation with people. So this is important, that if you are actually stuck with yourself and you start feel like you're not very much creative, you go meet people. Talk to people, and even getting outside, get into the sun, get into the snow, whatever, and meet with a new context. That is very important. Just embrace yourself into the new context all the time, and that will help you bringing a new possibility every minute. Yeah.
And I really like what you're saying about movement and being active. And it also attaches to the point that we should speak up if we are getting stuck and we don't know what to do, and people will help us. But that's a thing that happens here in Asia, that a lot of people are afraid of speaking up. So how do you tackle that?
They will feel like you're not looking good, right? I mean, if you raise your hand and say, I don't know about this thing. I mean, Asian culture, you're not looking good. And that is a very important factor that obstruct the Asian culture to evolve. Okay. I break through that barrier myself. I'm just speak out. I'm just say, I'm stupid. I don't know about this. Can you tell me about this? I'm not being shy of being stupid, for example. I don't care about whether I'm looking good or not looking good. I just want to be expressive. Okay. So this is something that prevents us, to evolve. And I think most of my friends who actually living in this part of the world who are being more expressive, actually they got the advantage of both worlds. So this is something that important. You are actually stuck to looking good conversation because you have you as you. You are stick to your identity. If you follow my presentation and you keep thinking that you are just a space, nothing inside it, even you are creating inside a space and you're removing it, so you are nothing. If you're nothing, there is nothing for you to be losing face or you not looking good, and stick with that. Okay. And that is the way to actually, just stick with that for a few seconds. You can't do it all the time, of course, but just in the moment you want to create something, you want to find a possibility for yourself, you just do that.
That gets me to the point that you say we need to be nothing in order to create. But people are asking, creativity comes from different places and sometimes in unexpected situations and times, and we don't have that moment to sit down and be nothing. Is there anything or any habit to have more on-demand creative juices flowing around?
It's like riding a bicycle, of course. You're not actually good on riding bicycle or playing skateboard on the first day, right? You need practice.
Yeah.
So actually, creativity is better when you practice. Okay, being nothing is something that you have to practice. You have to actually being yourself. You take yourself, put it on the side, and being nothing. You have to keep on practice that. When you actually practicing good enough, you will come up with a creative idea like that, like snap, like that. Every time you want something new, you want a creativity, you got that right away. Okay, so there is a possibility to be for you, even you, everyone who listen to this can be a creative, very creative person like that. But of course, you need to practice. You can ride a bicycle across the country, but you need to practice. So you have to start practicing, seeing the possibility within the context. You have to practicing, asking yourself, what is possible within the context? And start seeing that possibility without you as you, practicing being in emptiness, practicing being nothing. And, within that nothing, you embrace by the context and you ask yourself one question, what is possible? You practicing that, frequently, and you became fluent of that. I can tell you, creativity is no mystery, no mystique. It will actually arrive even before you notice. Okay, so what is this is actually happening is real. So it's not a theory. It's coming from people like me who actually practicing on this industry for at least 30 years. So this comes from the experience, and I'm letting you having that.
Yeah, it's strengthening that awareness and closing the gap of the moment when it happens, the aha moment, and when you actually can react. From Jacqueline, she's asking, how do you know if an idea is good or creative enough?
To ask the people next to you. Well, a lot of time, I have a crazy idea. I have one direction of architecture. I have the another direction of architecture. I put that idea into the test, and the test is the people. It's a context that this project or this building is around. Okay, so I test that with the client. I test that with the team I'm working with. I test that with the engineer. So I start putting the idea into the authentic context of what it might be existing. You can do the same thing with your creative idea, your creative project. If you have the idea, you know which one is good, testing it with the people beside you. Okay, so that is the best thing for sure.
And when we think about corporates in businesses in general, we think that marketing, designers, architects, perhaps a couple of other industries are the most creative ones. But then we think about the finance industries or operational businesses. How can we help them facilitate the creativity in their workplace and
take us to the fact that actually every person on earth was obligated to some kind of creation. Okay, if you're a woman, for example, you then become someone girlfriend, for example, and you create that relationship along the way. So this is something that we create. We always, as a human being, create something, always. Okay, so being creative or get into the domain of creativity is something very natural of being a human. Okay, you are, and every single one of you was born as a creative person already. Okay, but you don't know that. I mean, you don't feel that because someone tell you that if you are in the financial sector, you are not supposed to be creative, and that is the past. That's not the future. Okay, so the future is that we can create possibility of everything and everyone as a creative person, just because they know that they are always already a creative person.
Super, thank you. Crystal Lee, she wants to know, how do you keep on trend all the time? And do you have any suggestions for people that work in the creative industry? Here in the chat. If not so, yes, she would like to know, how do you keep on trend all the time? And if you have any other suggestions for the people that are working in the industry.
Practice and practice. You have to keep on doing it all the time. I very fortunate to being an architect, and actually I need to be a creative person all the time with my team, with my client. So I practice all the time and working all the time. Every day deliver something creatively from my desk. Okay, so creative is not gift. I can say that 100 times. It's a practice. It's a skill. Okay, so if you actually want to come up or actually become a very talented creative person, you have to keep on practicing. Thinking about bicycle, riding a bicycle is need practice. It's the same thing. You have to practice, and you have to do it all the time, every day, every month, every year. Okay, if you actually doing that, I can guarantee you that there is no way you can escape from being a creative person, and the creative idea will actually being delivered from you easily each time.
Is there a difference between being in trend locally and internationally, or it's almost the same?
Can you repeat that question again? Sorry.
Is there any difference between being on trend locally within your local environment and being on trend internationally? So when people see your work and the services that you provide, that they have an international appeal, is there a difference between that and the local ones?
Well, of course there are, but it doesn't matter. Okay, I think I am working in the context of Thailand, of Bangkok. Okay, so I have to actually make sure that my work or my creativity or my idea was well accepted in this city first. Okay, and then we are working on another domain, which is actually international domain, and we have to make sure that we embrace also the international domain as the context of what you're working with. Okay, it's also, so we are working with so many different kind of contexts. We're working with a context which is locally, we are working with a context that's internationally, and if we embrace both of them, the possibility we are creating, will be delivered within that both of the context domain. So this is very important, that you have to always think like that. Okay, you have to think that if you design a house or a hotel resort in Thailand, how you can how it will be appealing to the people who actually come from Europe and enjoy this resort as well. So has always been my challenging. Yeah.
We have Crystal Lee also asking again, how do you make sure you are going to the right direction?
You don't know. Indeed. But you just have to keep on climbing. Okay. If you remember the picture of the mountain I showed you, when you're looking from below, you don't know which one is the pinnacle, which one is the top of the mountain. You can see it from far away. Maybe you don't see the real, highest top of the mountain, but you see some pinnacle along the way. So you have to keep on climbing, so you see more. The higher you get, the more you see, right? So I would say you don't know which one is right, which one is wrong, but you will start to know when you start walking up that mountain. Okay, you start seeing more and more, and you will start understanding more, and you will start seeing which one is the right direction that you're going to.
Everything is so connected to what you said about being that nothingness and not being afraid of all the preconceptions that we may have from our past.
Yes.
I know that Crystal, she is so eager to go on the stage with you. Just checking here some of the technicalities to see if that's possible. If not, I would like to know if there's like a top 3 or top 5 techniques or advice that you would give us entrepreneurs in order to keep that creative going, and even when we feel down, what to do to make us not lose sight of our main objectives.
My advice would be one, okay, don't stop and don't give up. I think again, I'm going back to the analogy of riding the bicycle. If you stop paddling, okay, you fail, right? That's obviously. So once you get onto the bicycle, you just keep on paddling it, and you will, move into the future. If you stop, it means you stop. I mean, you fell down or you stop. You just stop. So if you want to keep on moving, if you want to keep on driving, just keep on paddling. And sometimes you don't know which direction you're going to. but at least you keep on moving. And that is very important, because if you still keep on moving, even though you got into the wrong direction, it will get you somewhere. Okay. If you're not actually on the bicycle and you're not paddling, you're going nowhere. So you don't have a choice. You just have to keep on doing it. Right or wrong, nobody knows. Maybe you're going to the wrong direction and you have to ride back on the other direction. It doesn't matter. At least you're moving, right? You're not
Yeah.
dead. So that is very important. Yeah.
The unstoppable journey of entrepreneurship and creativeness. Thank you very much, Duangrit. If anybody else has a question, you want to type it in now or raise your hand, because this has been so insightful, so creative, and myself, I'm feeling that creativity. Thank you very much for all of your advice and insights. And it's been such a pleasure to have you here. And before we go, I just want to remind everyone that if we want to connect, have more insights from our wonderful industry experts, you can go on the few newly launched website and chat to a team. Remember, you ask and then we answer. On Thursday, we have another online mentoring session with Marina Madir, the UN Person of the Year and daughter of the former Malaysian Prime Minister. She's going to tell us how to overcome what others think about you. And this is a great topic to also connect it to creativity, because we're throwing out from the window our preconceptions and start our creative juices flow.
Sure.
We have the link for our next session too. Please RSVP. And once again, thank you very much for connecting with us, Duangrit, and everybody on the floor. Thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Again,
thank you for your invitation.
Thank you.
And enjoy creativity.
Your host. Thank you, everybody saying inspiring, so inspiring. Katy, Crystal, thank you very much. We are having all of the reactions.
Sure, thank you
on
so
the
much.
Screen. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.